Hi, hello, welcome. I am the favorite unkempt snuggle Pepper, and we're going to be doing another art critique from the art critique subreddit. So this is an illustration for someone who is an aspiring illustrator, and they were made the comment that they want to be a professional illustrator, but they feel like their work is mediocre. And there are two big things that I would go with on this, and I'm going to break those down. First is going to be thinking of the overall piece, so the big picture, if you will, and that is how everything relates to each other. And then the other thing I would talk about are minor details, things that you're going to have to sit down and think about that go into the storytelling. So in the big details, I'm going to talk about composition. It's hard to explain because there's so many little moving parts to this. She has so many things going on. And individually those things look really good, but as a whole it's not working. So she does not look like she is part of her environment. You have this background, which is a teal color, and it looks like this forest is either very heavily shaded or very dark. It could be nighttime, we don't know. This is one of the things that you'll need to decide as you make a piece. What time of day is it? Who are they throwing knives at? What's going on in this scene? So an overall composition, if this is how dark the forest is, then she's in a pretty dark area. She's not going to have a highlight on her arms or on her leg that are going to be as bright as a sunlit highlight, which is what her skin currently looks like. It looks like she is being lit by the sun. Another overall composition thing is that all of the colors you use in her flesh tones, they're good choices for flesh colors. However, there are a few things that happen. Number one, she's in an environment that is very green. Her flesh would not still be a flesh color. When you separate them and make them their own colors, they won't look like flesh tones because she's in such a green, such a cool toned environment. She's not going to be that warm pink that we would see if she's in a sunny forest, in a clearing, or in that type of situation. Another larger issue that we're coming to is, what do I pay attention to? So in illustration, regardless of who you're illustrating for, you definitely want to guide the viewer's eyes to know what's going on. So, number one, what do we want to focus on? We want to know that she's throwing knives. But this knife, way over here, is almost the same color as the tree. There's not a whole lot to tell us that there's a knife in the corner being thrown, or who we're throwing it at. But that's okay. We can sometimes come back and have a different shot where we're throwing the knife at the bad guy or whomever. The only reason I kind of noticed this is it comes over some of her bows, but she is pointing with her hand, sort of. She is pointing. But we see her hand, the way that it is lit, the size in comparison to everything else. We see her hand before we notice the knife that is being thrown. And after we notice her hand, we also notice her apron. Her apron is very, very detailed. Generally, unless it's a specific type of fabric, which usually make aprons out of something that is washable, this fabric would not show this much detail if she is wearing it as an apron, as in it's supposed to protect her clothing. The only way it's going to show that much detail is if her clothes are wet and sticking to her, and then it wouldn't because the skirt is being frilly anyway. So less detail there, because what we really want to focus on, what we should be seeing first is her face. And you do all this intense shading on her limbs, but then her face is almost one color except for her nose, which is being lit from underneath, which is not consistent with the rest of the shading. And so that segues me into my other point, which is the small things that we need to pay attention to. So where is our light source? Are we having a light source like this? And what is our light source? Is it the sun? Is it the moon? If she's in a forest that's this dark, again, everything should be darker and cooler. But also, even though you're going for an anime style, if you're going to do soft cylindrical shading on her limbs and then get to her face, there still needs to be some shading done. So, right, she would have her cute little button nose. There's no other indicator other than the lighting of her nose that would lead me to believe she is being lit from below, or that her head is going far enough back that we would see the underside of her nose. So with this much detail, what I would do is take these shadows and shade in her eye sockets, shade in her I would take the size of the eyes down just a little bit and put the shadow where the eyelid would be. She has a bit of a surprised look on her face. If she's upset, I would bring this in and give her a more fearful look. And if she's angry, I would give her a little bit more of a snarl. So with this pose, I am curious if you used a 3D model and rendered that model because of the line on the wrist and the outline. This reminds me of a Clip Studio Paint model. But a few things I would fix pose-wise. And these are smaller details that a thumbnail isn't going to necessarily help with. But I would recommend thumbnailing, since this background is such a dark, it's a variety of shades of turquoise, but she's wearing a blue dress. And that's a very interesting fashion choice. If she had a story and a reason for why she is wearing a blue dress with an apron, then I would say we need to make some changes in the environment so that she stands out more. Because right now, her skin stands out for the wrong reason. Her dress kind of blends in for the opposite reason. So, also, where do we go from here? All right. A few more detailed bits. Her hip is right here, which leads me to believe she is moving this way because she wouldn't be able to stand like this. She's doing like a baseman. Oh, the players in baseball when they do a home run. So her skirt's going to go up to this hip and then go out like that on that hip if she is moving this much this way. Her ribbons are going to move behind her because, again, there's wind and momentum. This hand is a little strange. I get that she just threw the knife, and that is a similar hand to what you would make when you throw a knife, but the fingers would be a little bit more open, which also gives us the opportunity to point at the knife that we just threw. I don't recommend throwing things across the room unless you know you're not going to hit anything breakable, but if you were to take a pencil and chuck it, that'll give you an idea. The same way that this hand, so much of this hand, it looks like it hurts. Another question that you will want to ask yourself is, where did these 3 knives come from? She doesn't have any belts. She doesn't have anything that leads us to believe that these knives were on her person. Did she just pick them up? Did she steal them? Um, Generally, when you're drawing a person throwing a knife with this much going on, you're talking about a rogue or an assassin, in which case she would be wearing a completely different outfit. A few anatomical notes: for her chest to twist all the way this way, like so, and for her breast to be sticking out this far. Um, Generally, on her frame, her breast would be too large. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and say, cool, she has big boobs, but this shoulder is going up, which is going to pull on the breast tissue and flatten the breast against the body. Whereas this breast would cover more of this. But for her chest to be this far twisted and her pelvis to be twisted this way is not only very uncomfortable, she would have to be very flexible to achieve it. And looking cool as you are throwing knives by turning your torso one direction and your legs another direction, probably not the most helpful. So in the idea of storytelling, I would create a story around her to why she's in this pose. Why is she doing this? I'm going to assume, and I'm going to make up some backstory, that she's out on a mission and she just got discovered when she wasn't supposed to be discovered. So she has been startled, which would explain her facial expression. And she's throwing knives at the assailant who has just discovered her. But she also has to run. I don't know why she has to run. Maybe there's multiple people chasing after her, which is a bad thing if you are an assassin, because you're meant to do one-on-one and go and do the job and do no fighting whatsoever. So that would explain the story. However, if she's leaping, then we have to pick a direction. Either her chest goes this way, right? And then her legs go this way. And if you are thinking, oh, I just want her to be cutesy, or, well, not cutesy, but, sexy, then her leg going this way, and then her back leg going this way. Right? She's twisting. So she's about to go into a run. She's about to run this way. And there's her bottom, and then her skirt, flies up, and we get a little bum shot. If that's what you're after, if you're after her trying to be sexier and make a sexier silhouette, I would go that direction, rather than this direction. It would also make more sense that she wants to get out of the situation since she is throwing knives. Now, you did a great job with having to hold knives between her fingers and taking care of that, but that would be so hard to hold. I mean, as a woman who, our pants don't have real pockets, I do carry things like that, but it's not comfortable, and it's not something that I can quickly pick my next knife up and throw it. Nor do I think you can throw 3 knives at once like that. I could be mistaken. I haven't read enough fantasy novels to know if that's true or not. My last little bit of advice is, I have a guess that you may have used a model and you may have thrown a flat color on top. Color picking. So your highlights to your shadows in your skin is a good flesh tone. However, skin has areas which are more pink and more yellow and more blue. Generally, you don't find too much blue in girls, because we don't end up with a 5 o'clock shadow. But her kneecap should be a little bit more saturated. And still with that little bit of a highlight. But it should be a little pinker, which will, of course, change as you change the flesh tone to match the environment. With the dress, rather than going all the way to black, I would avoid that. There's so much you can do. If her chest truly is facing this direction, we know from over here that her dress, her chest, this is the direction of the light, so her chest is facing that. She would get much more light on her chest. Just lighten this up a bit in here. Lightening her dress is also going to bring more attention to her face, which is what we want, and make her look like she's wearing her clothes in her environment by color correcting. Oh, I lost track of my color picking. So when we pick these three colors, which is the color you use through most of her, or we go over to the blue and pick these three colors, the color picker doesn't change hue very much, which is something. Blue, is it red, is it green? That's what I mean by hue. So if she is in sunlight, then the highlights are going to lean a little bit more towards yellow, and the shadow is going to lean a little bit more towards purple. So here with the blue, it goes a little bit more turquoise because we're going towards sunlight, and with the dark blue, it's going to go a little bit more towards purple. And I would avoid going all the way with that saturation. I would avoid going all the way to that black. This is going to give you much more dynamic colors as you are illustrating something. And with Master Studies, of course do anime, because she's a very anime type character. That's cool, that's fun. Look at various artists, but also look at artists who paint in realism and where they place their colors. Because I wouldn't mention this, I wouldn't even, I wouldn't really bring this up except that everything has been rendered. So I would take care of that with the color. I know it can be a very subtle shift, but it kind of gives a bit more life to things, whether it's clothing or flesh tones or lots of those things. So just be aware of the light source, the environment the person is on, basically all the details of art. This was a hard one, in part because, well, recording it just didn't always work out for me. Which is weird. I've done a few of these and it's been fine, but this one just gave me some trouble. A lot of the things that are inaccurate are kind of either a micro detail, like making sure the anatomy is right, making sure that, you know, the ribbon tails move in the right direction, or can be solved through some thumbnailing. How do you want to pick those colors? And my recommendation would be, if you're going to set out your flesh tones, you can take a pen and lower the opacity, and then take colors from your background and put it on top. That's going to give you a more accurate color of what she would look like in this environment, if that makes sense. That's what I tend to do. If I know they're going to be in a strangely lit environment, that's how I would light them. So, in conclusion, thumbnailing, Master Studies, and attention to details and how things work. I wish you luck on your journey towards illustration. There are definitely a lot of great tools out there. And there's a lot of great shows on creators on YouTube who explain how art works. Highly recommend Marco Bucci especially. That's all I got. Well, that's the end of the video. That's all I got. Well, at least for this video. You can check out more videos here. Subscribe to my channel there. Don't forget to hit all the buttons. And I'll see you next time.